because police misconduct, assault and harassment from a female officer with the Warren Police Department. This here is a written statement from my neighbor. You can probably see her name there, Suzanne K. Maxwell, and her 4 children witnessed this abuse towards me in my own driveway, just trying to get to work. She also signed it and put her address, which she is my neighbor that lives directly across the street from me. She was able to witness the whole situation that happened that day. This is also the ticket that they wrote me. You can probably see the date on there, which is actually here at the bottom. Say 4/29/14. The first name that you see on the ticket is the female officer that actually placed the abuse upon me. Her first name is Michelle. Her last name is Seifert. That is her fellow officer there. The second one. Their badge numbers is on there, and they're with the Warren Police Department. This happened at 4:11 p.m. Once again, my name is Rashandria Jones Foster. I'm actually going to walk you outside to where the incident took place. This is my own driveway where the incident took place. This area right here is actually where I was parked when I noticed that I was being blocked in and that I could not get out on my own. I'm gonna walk you to where I was actually blocked in, which is right here. In this area, this whole area is where the car that they pulled over was blocking me in here. They were actually parked right behind the car there, right in front of this house next door to me. So they were parked here, and the car that they was blocking me in was parked here. That is my neighbor's house right there, right across the street, that's seen the whole incident, which is not too far from my driveway. So she was able to see, her and her children was able to see the whole incident happen. She's from across the street at this house here, directly across the street from me. This is about the police misconduct against Warren Police Department. She's going to state a little bit about what she saw on that day, which was April 29th, Tuesday. So, hi Suzanne.
Hi.
Please tell me what you and your children was able to see from across the street.
Yeah, it was a pretty warm day, finally, after the long winter we had. And my kids were right out on the front porch, about 8 to 10 feet away here from this driveway. And we heard a commotion. We saw a car being pulled over, and the car was pulled over the bumper to about here, blocking this bottom portion of her driveway, of Rashandra's driveway. And they had a couple that they were pulled out of the car and was searching them and handcuffing them. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, what's going on, you know? And then we see our neighbor Rashandria back up her car, and then all of a sudden the woman officer, she's kind of short with blonde hair, she come running from the street as she was backing up and said, why the fuck are you trying to back up? It was her wording. And then she ran over, and Rashandria tried to get out to see, and then she saw her running over, so she got back in, didn't really get all the way out. And the woman officer ripped open her door and grabbed her by her hair, basically, pulled her out, flipped her hat off on the ground. I'm pretty sure it was, she said she's going to mace her. She had a can of mace in her hand, and basically was jerking her around. Then all of a sudden we saw her handcuffed, and then she was led down here to sit on the ground for about 20 minutes on the ground handcuffed while they took care of this other couple. And then the man officer finally came over I don't know if he ran her driver's license and all that, but he allowed her to finally, after she was sitting here for 20 minutes behind the car, he basically guided and told her she could just go on off to work. And it was a shocker to see how the woman officer had ran up on her and was verbally swore and said, "Why the F are you trying to back out?" And grabbed her by her hair, threw her hat down, had mace already. It was too much excessive force for a simple.
My name is Diab Kamal, and I'm an expert witness and investigator. I have a client named Rashandria Jones Foster, who is about to call my office in a couple of minutes, but I want to give the audience some background on her case before she calls in. Basically, her case is unbelievable. She's a mother on her way to work, leaving her own driveway from her own residence. A Warren police officer, actually two officers, made a traffic stop in her driveway. She was late for work. She tried to get their attention. She signaled them, and then she blew her horn twice. Within minutes, a female officer assaulted her, wrapped her hands around my client's hair, according to a witness and my client, and essentially tried to pull her out of the car by her hair. She was assaulted, handcuffed, and actually placed in the back of a police unit before the police unarrested her. And they actually took the handcuffs off. The senior officer told the second officer that you basically don't have an arrest or something to that effect, and then they released her. Now, how do you get beat up on your way to work in your own driveway by the police? And she didn't do anything more than blow her horn. Now, the police, of course, have their own version. I guess this woman just decided to get up that afternoon and go punch out two cops in the driveway, but there's no record of her having behaved that way previously, and according to the witness, it didn't happen that way. She was minding her own business on her way to work, and I can tell you from police experience what she really ran into. This is what's called an attitude arrest. The cop did not like her attitude, felt she was behaving in a manner that the cop was offended by, and she decided to beat her up and take her to jail, which happens a lot. But her partner actually, exercised some caution and unarrested her. But then you've got another problem. How do you explain the use of force? You can't beat someone up. If you had enough grounds to beat them up, you had enough grounds to take them to jail, and that doesn't change. So how do you explain taking the handcuffs off and telling her, be on your way? But it's actually not how it went down. The senior officer, who starts off like a good guy, then turns into a bad guy because he tells my client not to report this and that she better not report it. So I've called the police department, and they have a lot to say. Much of it doesn't add up, but they say that there's video proving that she really did want to beat up these two cops. So, I don't know. I'm doing a little bit of an investigation here, and if someone can present to me any video or any sort of a piece of evidence collected by any news organization that can give me a case where a mother on their way to work in their own driveway jumped a couple of cops just for kicks and then got released because she really did it, I don't know. So you can listen to my client in a few moments. I'm waiting for the call to be put through. It's going through the office now, and you'll be joining the call live. As always, I apologize for any problems with the sound. We can't control the incoming and outgoing calls. Depending on where they're going, the call quality is better or worse, but you'll sit through it. Thank you.
Welcome to PoliceViews.com. How may I assist you?
Hi, how you doing?
Well, how about yourself?
Pretty good. I just wanted to leave a message for Miss Kamal.
Okay.
The message is that I got in touch with the sergeant for the Warren Police Department.
Okay.
And he wants to meet up. Well, I told him that I can meet him next week on Wednesday. That's the 28th.
Okay.
And he wants me to come there around from 8 to 9 in the morning.
Okay. And what time zone is that? Is it Eastern time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will pass this right along.
Okay, and then if he do have any free time, could you also put in a note that if he can send me a note or something, because he said he told me to call him before I went there so he can give me some instructions on what to do.
Okay, I mean, if you want to hold on, I can see if he's available.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hold on.
Hello, Miss Jones Foster.
Hi, Miss Kamal.
Okay, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Okay, I got the message. So the sergeant wants to meet with you on the 28th at 8 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay, I think you should go ahead and meet with him, but I don't think you should go alone. Can someone go with you?
I think my husband is also, it's either going to be between him and my mom.
Okay, and what I'd like for you to do is simply be prepared. Well, first of all, I think you should ask him a few questions before you actually accept that date and time for your interview. This is what I suggest. You need to find out, and maybe you want to write these things down. So if you have a pen, go ahead and get one.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about two different things. One is going to be how to kind of prepare for the interview and what you need to do and say and all that. And then the other thing is going to be things that you should look out for that are a problem that the police do when they're trying to derail an investigation as opposed to really doing it the right way. So I want to give you some clues to look for things and some things to do to protect yourself and ensure that you're getting the best possible case investigation.
Okay.
Okay. First thing, you need to find out before you even agree to do the interview, is this interview going to be recorded? And if it is, are you going to receive a copy or should you bring your own recorder? That's the first question.
I asked him, could I record, and he told me no.
Okay, then you need to ask him if he is going to record and if you're going to have a copy of your own statement. Because if he's going to do it that way, where he's not going to allow you to have a copy of what you said, then that's an unfair disadvantage. That's not, I mean, he needs to explain to you, do you have a policy that says I can't record and I can't have a copy of my recording? Is that a policy? Is that a law? Or is that just something that you feel? Because if he can't give you a policy or a law that says that, then I would say, let me wait. I want to wait a few weeks. You'll call a lawyer. We'll find a lawyer who can do this for nothing. I mean, you can probably get the information online on one of the online services. You can ask a lawyer. Is it illegal for a person who's been victimized by a police misconduct incident to record their interview while they're being talked to by investigators? Now, I'm telling you right now, there probably isn't a law. He's just pulling this one out of his backside because it's an advantage to him if he can have you not have a copy of what you said, because what does that mean? If he starts picking your story apart and looking for things to, I mean, you know, I want to remind you of something. When I called down there, and this is recorded, when I called down there, there was a woman that got on the phone who was the watch commander, And I don't know even if she knows anything about this or not, but she was jumping to their defense. She was saying, "You know what I'm talking about?"
Mm.
She was jumping to
You talking about the lieutenant?
Yeah, she was jumping to their defense. And she said, "Oh yeah, we have a videotape, and it proves your client was doing this and doing that." Well, first of all, if you're making those kind of judgments, you shouldn't even be evaluating this. That's my opinion. But my point is, if the investigators come at the case like she did, they're going to try to take your case apart, then they're going to be looking for things that work against you. So they may say that you did something that you didn't do. They may take a particular point of view about a piece of evidence. And if you don't have a recording of what you actually said, how are you going to defend yourself? How are you going to say, well, no, I didn't say that? So I don't even think you should do an interview if they won't allow you to have a copy of it.
Exactly.
And if they tell you that you cannot have a copy of it and therefore they cannot interview you, then you tell them, I'm going to submit my own testimony. I'm going to submit a recorded statement, and you can not agree with it or agree with it or not, or you can give me the questions you have for me in writing, and I'll respond to them in writing. So no matter what happens, you should tell them, I'm willing to respond to your questions in writing if we can't agree on the terms of an interview. But if you do an interview, you're at a substantial disadvantage if you cannot get a copy of what you said.
Okay.
So if they're going to do it that way, then don't screw around with it. So that's one thing I want you to look out for. Now, there are other pitfalls that come along as the meeting, if you actually agree and go through with it, that I want you to be aware of. First thing is, you're not a police investigator. And I see cops do this all the time. The first thing they do to intimidate and kind of get the complainant on the defensive is they start asking you a bunch of police questions like, what's a 499 and what's this and what's that? Well, how are you going to know? You're not a trained police expert. So if he starts asking you questions like, what should an officer do when someone is doing X, Y, and Z? Your answer to that is, I'm not expected to know that. I'm not trained as a police officer. You're not trained as a nurse. So I don't expect you to answer medical questions. So make sure you go in with that attitude, because I've seen it happen with every case where the cops are trying to get out of a complaint. They start asking cop questions to someone who doesn't know anything about those kinds of answers and cannot give an analysis. So I want you to look out for that. I also want you to look out for questions that do not deal with the issues that you're presenting. So it's not your place to speculate on whatever else the cops might have been thinking about. Like, well, did you know that there was a burglary in this neighborhood recently, to justify whatever they were doing to you? You have nothing to do with that, and you should say, wait a minute, I don't think that's an appropriate question. That has nothing to do with the circumstances here, and that will also include questions that they might start pointing at you, like, how many times have you been arrested? Have you ever gotten in a fist fight before? Do you argue with the police regularly? If they start asking you asinine questions like that, then you need to just stop and say, you're not asking appropriate questions, and I'm not going to continue to answer. And again, your fallback on every one of these situations is, I think I prefer to submit a formal written statement or a formal recording of a statement, because I don't think this is a fair hearing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So those are some of the things. And I just have a few more to go over. When you're talking to the officer, make sure that you have key points that you want to make, and you're going to measure your success in this interview by whether or not you made him aware of those key points. Okay. And I'll give you a few of them. One is, you were abiding by the law. You were not causing trouble by notifying them that they were blocking your driveway. Number two, you had every right to be allowed to leave, and you tried a reasonable approach to getting their attention and informing them that you were not resisting arrest at any point, but this officer started using violence without provocation, and she needs to explain how she unarrested you. How do you unarrest somebody after you put the handcuffs on them? And what was her basis for attacking you and getting physical in the first place? What was her basis for doing that?
And you need to let them know that you want them to explain. This is questions you should have for them. You want them to explain to you what her basis was for arresting you and using force against you.
Basis was for arresting. And you said what else? Arresting
and using force against arrest. What was their basis for using force and arresting you?
Okay.
Okay. Now just a few more, and I'm done. As I mentioned, don't answer law enforcement questions. Make sure you get your key points in. Make sure that you don't answer questions that are not on the subject. And fourth, I kind of started talking about with this question I just mentioned, but I want to kind of make it more pinpointed. Don't let them make it about you. This isn't about you. You're a citizen, and you are doing things that a citizen would be expected to do, which is trying to get to work, being a professional about your encounter with the officers, and then, X, Y, and Z happened, and you didn't have any control over that. So if they start making this about what is your background and don't you know how to behave and why you didn't do this and why you didn't do that, and I would be careful with even admitting to you did anything, even if you're not clear, anything that you say to them, they're going to try to use against you, so you should know that going in. They're going to try to turn it. So just make sure you're on your toes. And one more thing, don't let them rush you. This is your meeting. So you slow it down. If you're not finished at the end and you got 5 questions, have your 5 questions written down and say, I have 5 questions for you, and go through them slowly. And you make him answer your questions. And your trigger, the card that I want you to have in your pocket that you take out if it becomes necessary, is ahead of time you get the mayor and you get someone else in authority at the city council's information. And if you start having a problem with him, you say, excuse me, I want you to do this even before you go down there. I want you to call someone at the mayor's office and let them know that you have scheduled a meeting with the police department, that you were beaten and abused in your driveway, and that you're concerned that this police department is unprofessional, and that you are in fear that this officer may start something with you in your meeting. So maybe what I'd like for you to do is go to the city hall and have him meet you with a city official there next to you so that he doesn't get stupid in the meeting. When you tell him, first you make arrangements with the city hall, you tell him, look, I have a police officer I want to meet with, but I want to go to the city attorney's office or the city clerk or my council person. You get some staff person, I don't even care if it's a flunky at the bottom. You get someone who's in official capacity in that city hall to agree to meet with you so that person escorts you over to the officer, makes the introduction, so that and you make sure that you convey to them that you had an unprofessional experience with this department, that you're worried they're going to do it again, and that you want someone there to ensure your safety.
Exactly.
Okay, and that way, if he starts getting stupid or doing any of the things that I described in this phone call, you have their phone number handy, and you call that person right away and say, it's happening. He's engaging in improper conduct. He won't take a complaint.
Okay.
Okay? So, and I have one last thing to tell you. You're not going to believe this. I have another complaint against them from somebody who doesn't even know you.
Really?
They called in this morning. And it's the same sort of behavior.
Oh my God.
Like the cop is completely out of control. They made up a case against him. I won't get into all the details, but basically he hadn't even done anything. There wasn't even a person complaining against him. So the police made up a complaint against him just because they were upset that his wife told them off over the phone. So they just generated some criminal stuff for him to deal with now.
Oh my God.
Out of thin air. It's not like he broke in a house. He wasn't robbing anybody. He had purchased an item over the internet, bought it from someone, and it turns out to be defective. And when he tried to take it back, the person called the police, and the police just turned it around and made him now the suspect, and have just created financial problems and all sorts of other issues for him out of thin air.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so look, what I told him, and I didn't get into detail because I didn't give him your name, I told him I already had a case against this department, and what I want to do is I want you, the two of you, to get together to go downtown and make the city council aware, of what these people are doing.
Okay.
It's rare for me to get 2 complaints in 1 month on one police department. And I'm talking about some of the biggest departments in the country don't get 2 complaints. These guys, I have 3. I have 3. And when I asked an attorney to take a look at your case, he said he couldn't take it. But hey, I want to let you know that this department has another major complaint that's been in the news. I'm looking for that one now, but that's the 4th story. Okay, Warren Police Department is out of control, and what I think, it needs to be made an issue with the city council, the mayor, and the people who write the checks for the people who run the police department. So enough said. Those are my key points. And can you just hold 1 second, just a minute?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, and listen, just one more thing. You can always ask or tell the officer, you know what, I don't want to answer that question until I talk with a lawyer. So if there's anything that makes you uncomfortable, if you think it's going in the wrong direction, you say, you know what, I'm happy to answer that question, but I want to talk to a lawyer. And do this for me. When you meet him, you let him know that you're consulting with attorneys, and they've told you that if you have things that you feel uncomfortable about, you're going to tell him that on that question I need to defer and talk with a lawyer, and that he should not have a problem with that. So you let him know if there's anything you don't want to talk about, or if you think he's asking questions that you really need to discuss with a lawyer, you're going to take – he can put his interview on pause. He doesn't have to do it all in one day. You'll be happy to come back and answer any questions that you're uncomfortable answering at this interview.
Okay.
Okay, leave yourself some wiggle room.
The main stuff
Go
you
ahead,
said was some of the main stuff you said was I was abused by the law, and I had every right to leave. I was not resisting arrest, which she did physical abuse on me.
Hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's make it even easier. I'm going to send you the recording of our phone call.
Okay.
I'll send it to you within the hour. It'll be an email. You can download it and just listen to it and play it back on the key points that you think you need to remember.
Okay. And then one more thing, Ms. Kamal. I know you said something about checking the status on the recording, on the record for the recording that you requested. I just called down to the department and the records department and keep asking them every few days.
Yes, what you do is you ask them every few days. I had my investigator file a records request on my behalf. He asked for all records with my name on it. He asked for any video recordings under the control of the police department, and I want to know, what do you have? Do you have it? Is it ready? And you ask for the records clerk at the police department specifically. They have a number for that person, and you can interact with them as many times as you need to get the records. And if they say that they want the same records submitted on their form, then tell them to send you the form. You live in town. Fill it out, and I'll tell you what to ask for, but basically it's everything relevant to your case. The most important thing is any records with your name, any audio and video recordings by the police, including dash cams or any other recording device held by the officers, any supplemental or other reports written about you. I also ask for all use of force policies, which is that should tell the officers when and where they can use force against a citizen in your community. I ask them for the personnel records of the police officers who arrested you, and I asked them for about 4 or 5 other things. So just if you hit those key points, they'll know they have it because I emailed it to them and I know that they got it. And if they're delaying it, there's going to be a process, and you can actually call down to the police department and ask them what is the time limit, what's the time frame for their response to a records request. They have a limit. They can't just go on forever. Usually it's about 15 days. So just call it, on your own and check it out, and you'll find out when they're supposed to give it back to me, and then we can start asking why they're withholding it.
Exactly. Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamal.
All right. Oh, you're so welcome. And as usual, we're posting everything. Your story is getting a lot of views on our website. So let's just keep it going, and you let me know if you need anything between now and that meeting.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Mr.
Have a good
Kamal.
night.
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.